You're with BBC News. It's day 6 of the Iran war. Over the next 10 minutes or so, we'll bring you up to speed with the key updates on the situation with Iran. The UK says it's sending 4 more Typhoon fighter jets to Qatar to strengthen defensive operations there. Iran has continued to target some of its neighbours with missiles and drones. Azerbaijan says it was attacked for the first time by Iranian drones. The UAE says it's been responding to more threats. Explosions have been reported in Qatar and Bahrain. Israel and the US have intensified their attacks on Iran itself, with reports of massive explosions in the capital Tehran and elsewhere. Iranian authorities say more than 1,200 people have now been killed. Meanwhile, there's been some relief for those from other countries who've been caught up in the events in the region. Repatriation and commercial flights have now started taking people home. Well, diplomatic efforts have continued at pace, both in how world leaders respond to the US and Israeli strikes on Iran, but also on securing national assets in the region. People have been commenting to the BBC's Instagram and TikTok accounts today, questioning the extent to which the UK may be getting involved. This was the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, earlier.
I can announce today that we're sending 4 additional Typhoon jets to join our squadron in Qatar, to strengthen our defensive operations in Qatar and across the region. Wildcat helicopters with anti-drone capabilities are arriving in Cyprus tomorrow. The Defence Secretary is on the ground in Cyprus right now, coordinating our work and meeting our brave servicemen and women.
Well, the UK's Defence Secretary John Healey has arrived in Cyprus at a British military base there, which was hit by a drone attack at the weekend. More British military resources are now being sent to the area, including the warship HMS Dragon. But warning sirens continue to sound at the base. Our correspondent Jessica Parker is there and was caught up in a recent alarm.
Filming straight inside! Straight inside!
We were being driven through the base when the siren went off. We were rushed into this building, into this room. As I ran in here, I saw servicemen get to the ground for their own safety. We've just been given, though, the all clear.
Jessica Parker in Cyprus. Let's take a look at how the surrounding region has been drawn into this war. Iranian missiles and drones have targeted the UAE, plus explosions have been reported in Qatar and Bahrain, with Azerbaijan also now being drawn into the conflict. Let's get the latest from our correspondent Barbara Pletusha, who's in Doha in Qatar. Paint a picture for us, Barbara, of what day 6 of this has been like.
Well, Iran really pressed ahead with the attacks across the Gulf today. Here in Qatar, around midday, we heard the rumble and bang of air defenses. And then the Qataris announced that they had intercepted 13 missiles and 1 fell into the sea. Earlier, they had ordered people living around the U.S. Embassy to evacuate as a precautionary measure, they said. And that's because U.S. diplomatic missions have been hit in other parts of the region. There were also explosions, as you said, heard in the United Arab Emirates and in Bahrain. I think the UAE in particular faced a barrage. They said 137 drones and 7 missiles, most of them intercepted, but not all of them. And 6 foreign workers were injured. In Bahrain, there was a strike on a refinery complex that started a fire, which has been put out. And the refinery operations continue, but it just shows you how vulnerable the energy infrastructure is. And crucially, the World Health Organization in Dubai announced that it was shutting down its emergency global logistics hub. So this means that emergency medical supplies set to go all over the world are being held up. It just shows you how this is having an impact beyond the Middle East, and also Azerbaijan, as you mentioned, being drawn in, getting hit by missiles. Iran denied that it targeted Azerbaijan, but the Azerbaijanis were quite convinced that they were the ones who fired the missile. If you look at the numbers, the number of attacks the numbers put forward by the Pentagon, I should say, the number of attacks since Saturday has dropped dramatically by 86% when you look at missiles and 73% when you look at drones. But I have to say, it really didn't feel like that today.
Barbara, for the moment, thank you very much. Barbara Pletasher in Qatar. A couple of other developments to bring you from what's been happening today. And Lebanon says Israeli airstrikes on the country since Monday have now killed more than 100 people and wounded over 600. Roads are clogged around the capital Beirut as people try to flee. Israel threatened to bomb southern suburbs, which it says are strongholds of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran. An Israeli minister said one suburb would soon resemble parts of Gaza. President Trump says he needs to be personally involved in choosing Iran's next leader. He told the Axios news website that he thinks Iran's Islamic leadership will choose Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the assassinated supreme leader. But Mr. Trump said that that would be unacceptable. The fighting is continuing to have impacts on the global economy. There have been plenty of questions and comments on the BBC's YouTube videos today, questioning the cost to taxpayers around the world. Stock markets and oil prices are still volatile over fears that the war may drag on. Stock markets in both the UK and US rose slightly, but those in Asia tumbled earlier. Our economics editor is Faisal Islam. He has this outlook.
The US-Israel-Iran conflict has already had a profound impact on markets, and through that, likely to have a big impact on the world economy. To give you a flavour of this from some of the charts, that is a chart of the wholesale market gas price in the UK, shot up, nearly doubled in the first couple of days of trading this week, about halfway to the sort of shock that we saw in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. So if sustained, you are looking at higher energy bills in July. That's still a big if. This is something totally different. This is the price of urea, a byproduct of the petrochemical industry in the Gulf. That has shot up too. This is the time when fertiliser, which comes from this product, is required for agriculture, for food production. If that continues, if there are shortages, problems for food prices. And this is the choke point, the Straits of Hormuz. Is the visualization from marine traffic. You can see the red triangles. That is the tanker traffic. Normally it would be going through here. It stopped. You can see there no red circles, means that the ships have given up. They're at anchor. Insurance costs have gone through the roof and the like. It isn't just safe enough. So you see now a whole load of impacts. That's just 2 or 3 from the gumming up of this choke point. If it all stopped tomorrow, impact would be fairly marginal. It looks like it's going to go on for weeks, so people are anticipating a big impact. And the difference here is that that is not a byproduct of this conflict. The economic angle here, the economic impact, may be indeed an intrinsic part of how the conflict plays out.
Our economics editor, Faisal Islam. Well, let's take a look at the global travel situation now. Since the war began, tourists and business travellers have been stuck in the Middle East with flights grounded, but there seems to be much more movement, with both commercial and government charter flights actually taking off. Many countries around the world have seen their first repatriation flights from the region. The UK's delayed first charter plane evacuating British nationals finally took off from Oman this afternoon after being delayed yesterday. Earlier, a passenger on board the plane told the BBC it had been a shambles after the flight was delayed. It's due to arrive at Stansted Airport later tonight. Well, some passengers have already made it back to the UK. These people arrived into Heathrow earlier on a commercial flight. Those flights, though, are still very limited. And the air travel disruption has spread far from the Middle East. Elaine and her husband are stranded in Vietnam.
2 flights cancelled in the last 5 days now. So we got a hotel at our own cost. The flights, return flights, will be at our own cost. There doesn't seem to be any information, no help.
Elaine, who's trying to get home from Vietnam. Well, as we've mentioned, US and Israeli strikes have continued inside Iran. There is a state-imposed internet shutdown there with very little news coming out of the country. But our colleagues at BBC Persian have got some messages from people inside the capital, Tehran, and we've voiced up their words so you can take a listen.
It is tiring and I'm feeling trapped, because I have to stay mostly at home to avoid getting caught in the middle of an attack, just to save my life. And the sound of ongoing blasts is fatiguing in some sense. Each one just swallows a chunk of your energy.
Last night, there were a lot of strikes. From about 3 to 5 a.m., they were hitting places constantly. Honestly, how can I put it? People are almost excited. When it gets to around 9, people go up onto their rooftops. They sit there waiting for the strikes to happen. When fighter jets pass overhead, people wave goodbye to them and whistle.
I'm not really worried. A bomb hits, and then it's over. I think we've got used to the situation now, especially after seeing the 12-day war with Israel. The Islamic Republic will eventually go. In terms of how upsetting it is, it's not even comparable to the recent protests. But when a bomb hits and the house shakes, it is frightening. I'll leave Tehran if it turns into something like Aleppo. For now, I'm staying.
Meanwhile, here's what Iranians are hearing from state-controlled media. The newsreader on the state news network, Iran, read out this statement from the military about strikes on Azerbaijan.
The Islamic Republic of Iran, while respecting the sovereignty of all countries, especially Muslim and neighbouring states, denies that its armed forces launched any drones towards the Republic of Azerbaijan.
She went on to quote a spokesman from Iran's foreign ministry, which accused the Zionist regime of being to blame, saying the attacks were an attempt to disrupt relations among Muslim countries and that Iran had been falsely blamed. With us is our chief international correspondent, Lyse Doucet. Lyse, just a flavour there of the very different kinds of messages that people inside Iran are listening to while they cope with this bombardment.
I mean, no one wants their country to come under attack. No one wants to be under the rain of missiles and to live with not just what's happening day by day, the huge explosions, that fear of going out into the streets, but also having no sense at all about where this is heading. And even what we're hearing, and you heard in some of those comments, that some of the people who are hoping for change, who went out to the streets to protest in January, they're daring to hope that it's not just the leadership which will change now, that it will mean a change in the Islamic Republic of Iran. But even among those who want change, they don't want change to come through a war like this. They don't want their country to come under attack. And then they hear these reports, these conflicting reports as to whether or not the Americans or the Israelis are going to arm the Kurds. And that would actually raise new tensions in Iran. Ethnic tensions in Iran could actually put the future of the country as a unitary state at risk. So it's a real, I mean, we think we can all understand it or begin to understand. It's a real tumult of emotions. I remember when we were in Tehran in February, I was struck that some people did say to us that no one wants their country to be attacked, but we feel this is our last resort. But once you're in it and they're finding that the bombing is not just in Tehran, but it's across the country. So those people who were able to flee to safety elsewhere in Iran this time, they're not sure where they can go to hide.
And the ramifications of it, we're seeing so many countries dragged into this, as many commentators rightly predicted.
It's a reminder, but reminders aren't needed, that war once unleashed has a mind and a force and a control of its own. Yesterday, we were reporting about how a naval destroyer of Iran had been torpedoed by an American, had been destroyed by an American torpedo just out of Sri Lanka's territorial waters. And the sailors who survived are being treated in Sri Lankan hospitals. Today, it was Azerbaijan, although Iran is saying it wasn't us who sent them, but the Azerbaijanis, Azerbaijan has very close relations with the United States and with Israel, is denouncing Iran. So every day, Martine, we just don't know where it's heading, and it continues to head in different direction. But the direction it's not heading in is that there's no sense there's an end to this war.
Just very briefly, though, we're hearing from President Zelensky of Ukraine that the United States has approached him about getting help with coping with drone strikes.
Yes, and President Zelensky is worried too, because obviously the munitions which are being used in this war, they will now have a shortage, the kind of Patriot missiles and others that he desperately needs to fight his war against Russia. But President Zelensky has actually offered his assistance to those who need help fending off these attacks.
Lyse, for the moment, thank you very much. Lyse Doucet.